All right, welcome back to another episode of Just Buy Less Coffee, answering the deeper questions of American politics. My name is Troy, aka Keep Troy Blue. With me, as always, is Kathy Cannon, aka Cannon's Fodder, Irene Pettyfogger, aka Pollution,
Explain,
and
explain, explain, explain.
it means quibbler,
Quibbler? Why?
someone
Like
who quibbles.
I feel so dumb when I don't know these words.
I don't even know what quibbler is. That mean like someone who argues? I don't even know what that means.
He's probably really good at P words and Scrabble.
All right.
Now I am. Yeah.
Triple word score every time, man.
Yeah.
I think Scrabble's most fun when you can play with made up words that you have to be able to define in order to like keep them on the board.
So we're back at it again with the battle for Speaker of the House. I'm so glad that Irene is on here because we are about to go at it again. And this time it is going to be even more crazy because we don't have a clear successor to Kevin McCarthy, who was booted from the job only an hour or so ago, a couple hours ago. Motion to vacate brought forth by Matt Gaetz. The motion passed 216 to 210. Every single Democrat voted against Kevin McCarthy, along with 8 Republicans, including Matt Gaetz. So historic. Speaker of the House has never been vacated. There's been these votes a couple of times, but it's never actually gone through. No clear successor to McCarthy. And now this time there's no clear successor. And this time they're all mad at each other. So God knows what's going to happen this time. It could take months for them to sort this shit out. Presumably they'll be starting. I think they've gone home or at least recessed for the day. I'm sure they have to all go figure out what the hell's going to go on. Democrats will presumably nominate Hakeem Jeffries once again be in lockstep in support of Hakeem Jeffries for Speaker. Who the Republicans go with is anyone's guess. And now, like I said, they're all mad at each other. So that side's going to be a total shit show. But what are you feeling about McCarthy today? Really sad, pathetic, sort of weakest speaker in history. Lasted 10 months. 15 ballots to get there, and he's out 10 minutes. He's out 10 months later.
Yeah, I think it's funny. I think it's only been once in history that this happened. Like it was 1910, and it was an unsuccessful motion. But yeah, this
Didn't
is
they vote
wild.
against Boehner too, though? Or I guess they didn't get to a vote with Boehner.
I think they threatened it. I don't think they actually were able to do it. But I do like the part of it I hate is that Democrats are on the same side as Matt Gaetz, which is just like in my brain, it doesn't like compute. But Kevin McCarthy is so fucking stupid. He's so fucking stupid. Yeah. But I've been dying to hear Irene's take on this because she's been in work hell, and like this was the most exciting thing in the world for her last time. So Irene, please react. I need this in my life.
I was so excited when I learned this was happening.
I was like,
oh my God, it's happening again. Oh my God, more votes.
Just for background, because we may have new listeners. In January, when for those like 15 speaker ballots, Irene went fucking nuts.
I watched every single vote.
She had parties. She had people over to her house.
Yeah. I told people if you wanted to see me, we're watching the speaker votes, and it was just like the thing I did all week. People were making me food while I watched the speaker votes. It was like my personal Olympics. It was incredible.
It's your Roman Empire. That's what it is. It's your Roman.
It was.
She had charts with names, and she was keeping like whip counts and numbers.
I did. I had a bunch of live data going. I knew exactly what was going on every single time, who had voted, who was coming in, all that stuff. I was watching all of the live streams. It was great. But what I'm curious about is that if there's no clear successor, what's the plan? Like, what was in Matt Gaetz' head when he did this? He was like,
"There's no plan.
Let's get rid of him." It was truly just like a chaos move, and it's almost like are they trying to set themselves up to create like a new head of the like Republican Party? Like, I didn't understand the long-term plan of this. However, I'm very excited to watch Democrats just like fucking kill it again and just keep voting for Hakeem Jeffries and just show like complete solidarity. While the Republicans look absolutely stupid, especially going into a presidential election cycle. Like, you want to talk about looking idiotic. It's the presidential, all the debates, and then looking at what the party actually looks like currently in practice. I love it. I'm obsessed.
I know. It's the best. Like, remember I keep telling you about how like my professor in college, when I said the Republican Party will fracture apart in the next 20 years, and he was like, "Oh, that's just partisan dreaming on your end." I feel like I just need to call him up and be like, "What do you think now? What do you think of Kevin? What do you think?"
I think it's officially the Republican Party has completely fallen apart. Yeah. Although to be fair, it was only 8 dissenters, 8 Republicans voting against Kevin McCarthy. The rest of the Republicans voting to save his job. But I mean, you've got to think that conference is in complete and utter disarray. There's talk of expelling Gaetz from the conference, which I actually think they are going to do. I think a lot of people are really, really pissed because, to your point, Irene, I don't think he had a plan. I think I don't think it was about having a plan. I think he's just an agent of chaos. He just likes to watch the world burn. And he just wanted to get on TV. I really don't think they thought it through. There's several, obvious contenders, like Steve Scalise is their majority leader in the House. Elise Stefanik is the conference chair. Then there's Tom Emer. There's a few like people, but we don't even know if like those people want the job. Kevin McCarthy's probably going to just put his name right back in the hat again. So now you've got the chaos of January where they couldn't get around McCarthy, but now you've got three other people throwing it in there. God knows if they could, if they're going to like nominate Trump again and bring up that whole thing again. But yeah, I just feel bad for the Dems who have to just like, they have to sit there and like just vote for Jeffries for like hours and hours and hours. They can't leave. They have to be present. So if they stand up and leave, it changes the math and all.
Look, they just need to buy the new Hunger Games book, like Songbirds and Snakes. It's like 500 pages. It's ridiculous. They can just sit there and read it because it's engaging, right? You can sit there and just keep reading it, and just every now and again, like Jeffrey.
Funny little like cutaways, like Katie Porter reading The Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And all that
was funny. But truthfully, I think he didn't think it would work. I think it was I think it was supposed to be a political stunt where he would call the most.
He overestimated Kevin. He thought Kevin would have a deal.
He did. And like what I think he wanted to do was he wanted to do it and he wanted to be able to point to see once again Kevin McCarthy turns to Democrats to save his ass, and then he wanted to paint Kevin McCarthy as like like play on the rhino thing and try to sell Kevin McCarthy as essentially a Democrat. Like that's what I think he was going for. And then Democrats were basically like, nah, fuck you. We're going to let you sit in this shit. Like you blew out your diaper and we're not changing it. And I'm fine with it.
Yeah. Good.
The only like logic I could see behind it is that it's free advertising for the next election cycle. Because what this did is it created a new cycle for a lot of MAGA people to have a voice again and to not be silenced in the media for a little bit, where they're just like able to say all the shit that they want to say. And since we are going to an election cycle, it's going to be interesting to see who says what and how people realign, to see if we're going to see some realignments within the party happening on the floor as they're making their votes of like, okay, well, if we don't have a clear choice, are we just going to keep voting for the same thing? Or are we going to like try to bring new candidates up? What does that look like? And if we're going to see this sectioning off of what republicanism is and what republicanism can look like moving forward in this election cycle based on how people vote and how they organize and what kind of disorder we see without this. It's interesting.
Yeah, I think that's actually right. Because you remember, like the 2020 platform was "We love Trump, we hate Democrats." Like, and I wish that was an exaggeration, but it was a one-page document. We love Trump, we hate Democrats. So it could be a chance to actually like add some principles to the party again for like everybody but these crazy like Kevin McCarthy allies. But I also, on your note of the news cycle, that's the funniest fucking part for me because Hunter Biden was arraigned today. He pled not guilty to his gun charges today.
No one knew that.
That is the news cycle that they have been dreaming about for literally years, and it
he pled guilty today. I guess
he pled not guilty. He pled not.
Oh, not guilty. Okay.
So, yeah, but the point is like they've been waiting for Hunter Biden in court, Hunter Biden arraignment, Hunter Biden pleads. That was the news story they have spent 2.5 years begging for, and it's lost in the fucking nonsense of vacating the speaker because nobody will care about Hunter Biden because this is going to dominate the news until it's settled, and there's no clear plan to settle it. Like Hunter Biden's trial will be over fucking by the time they have this solved, and that is the funniest part to me.
I almost think that like Gates would welcome being expelled from the conference. So a lot of those like MAGA people would. He's even already like echoing the uniparty line and all this shit. I mean, it doesn't hurt him with like the extreme MAGA to be kicked out of the Republican Party either. I think at this point, the far right, the MAGA fringes were all about removing McCarthy. There's talk about MTG and Boebert being sellouts because they voted to save McCarthy's job. So it doesn't hurt. I mean, it doesn't hurt Gates, at least for ultra MAGA, for him to be even kicked out of the Republican Party. I don't think he gives a shit. Go ahead, Aaron.
One of the differences, though, is that the House is already in session, so House decorum rules still stand, right?
Yeah, that's
that's going to be the interesting part they have to play now. Is they can't just be delusional as much as they want to be. They have to stay within decorum. And if we have decorum standards, I'm curious how that's going to impact all of this because they can't just be ridiculous for the sake of being ridiculous and drag this out and have and
I
make
think-
the scenes they made previously in the same way.
Yeah.
But also the cameras won't be as interesting, right? Because the cameras have to stay fixed with
Cameras
the new
are set
rules. So you
now.
won't be able to pan the crowd and say, I know, see, that just broke Irene's heart right there. I'm
It
sorry.
did. That was so fascinating.
And they can still
Mhm.
have like committee hearings and meetings and stuff like that. They just can't take any votes because they can't they can't officially go into any kind of open session without a speaker. So
Well, what would be interesting is if they continue without a speaker, because in theory they can. They have the pro tem speaker, right, McHenry or whatever.
yeah.
But they also could just, and this I might get to actually teach this in a practical reason. Like there's the discharge petition method, right, where enough votes you can bypass the speaker and bring things to the floor. So how fucking funny is it gonna be if Democrats essentially start running the House of Representatives through discharge petition because of the dysfunction in the Republican Congress? So essentially, the Republicans may have just surrendered their House majority with this because sheer stupidity.
I think they're afraid of that because, like, as you saw, like the vast majority, like 95% of Republicans didn't want this to happen. And just all it took was 8 Republicans to join with the Democrats. I mean, this was essentially this was Democrats taking over the majority in the House to oust the Republican speaker. So.
And what would be really funny is it's these 8 Republicans that have done it because they're super far right and hate Kevin McCarthy. But like, if the madness keeps going, right, are there enough moderate Republicans still there to cross party lines, right? Like happened in 64 and all of that kind of stuff. Like, are there enough to basically just at this point throw their hands in the air and say, I'm done with this. Like, I don't agree with everything the Democrats stand for, but they're at least a functioning fucking party, and like leave the Republican Party and decide to caucus with the Democrats just to fucking stick it to Kevin McCarthy. I could also see that happening.
There is a sizable chunk of it's weird to say moderate because they're all pretty far right.
Oh, yeah,
Like the sensible Republicans who are really, really sick of these 8, 9, 10 crazies dominating the entire conference and making it so that they can't govern. I mean, the Republicans are fucking pissed right now. They're supposed to have a conference meeting in like an hour. I Jesus Christ, I would stay the hell away from that. This sounds like that would be scary. And I think blows are gonna fly there. But it's we were. Oh, go ahead, Irene, because I want to get into a larger point. So go ahead.
Wouldn't it end up helping Republicans in the next election cycle if Democrats are the last ones in charge? If this ends up flipping, because then they have a chance to reset and they can blame the past time on Democrats being in charge.
You mean like
because Republicans
blame
chaos
in the House on the Democrats?
Yeah, because then they can blame the chaos in the House on the Democrats because Democrats have control. But if they maintain control all the way through to the election cycle, then that screws them over because then they're responsible for the chaos of what's going on.
Well, I think,
they're responsible either way at this point.
Well, they would love to, but they lied and said that the Democrats were responsible for the government almost shutting down. I mean, they're not exactly wedded to the truth. But yeah, I think they do want to still maintain obviously they still want to they don't want to give up their majority. But yeah, this is why they're so pissed off, because this just makes them, going into an election year, it just makes them look like total asshats. But we got this close to like sort of rebuking chaos in government. There was this big success last week with keeping the government open, avoiding a shutdown. Kevin McCarthy actually made a lot of concessions to get Democrats' support on that vote. Democrats swept in and basically voted unanimously for this compromise bill to keep the government open for 45 days. There was a lot of thinking and sort of people speculating that Kevin McCarthy had finally seen the light and was ready to like go and make a deal with Dems to save his job. This being Speaker of the House is the only thing that Kevin McCarthy's ever wanted his entire life. So to avoid being fired, there was a lot of speculation that he would just basically build a bipartisan consensus and end the crazy. And all it would have taken was for him to go to the Democratic side. He had just made these deals to keep the House, or to keep the government open. All it would have taken was for McCarthy to go to the Democrats and be like, let's negotiate. I will throw back in the Ukraine funding. I don't think he would have put an end to the impeachment. That's a little much, but they could have negotiated. He could have found some common ground with Democrats, and I think enough Dems would have jumped on board to save his ass. Instead, he goes on to Sunday talk shows and basically blames the government shutdown on the Democrats and just shits all over the Democrats in the House. And it came out yesterday that the Democrats were pissed, and they were like, you know what, screw it, we're not helping McCarthy. Like, you're on your own, pal.
And that's the funniest thing to me is like he just couldn't help himself. He like had he pulled that deal with the Democrats, he would have been able to go into the midterm elections with like, I'm an effective speaker. I was able to broker bipartisan cooperation, which is essentially huge. Yeah, like which is essentially the entire message that Biden is trying to run on. If you've seen his new ads, like he's basically talking about like how he's been able to pass all of these big pieces of legislation. Every single one of them is bipartisan, like barely bipartisan, like you and me, we all know, but like technically bipartisan. And Kevin McCarthy had the opportunity to say, Joe Biden's not the only one that can reach bipartisan consensus, and the Republicans have been here, whatever. But he threw it away. He threw it away with his job and his career and his aspirations. And it's just, it's baffling how bad at his job he is.
Just like, could not in the 11th hour, could not find his way towards leadership with two hands and a flashlight. I mean, it was basically gifted to him on a platter, his way out of this, saving his job, saving his legacy, and he couldn't do it. He'd rather be fired and humiliated and leave in disgrace than work with Democrats. Like, that's literally what it came down to. All he would have had to done was be like, look, we're putting the Ukraine funding back, give us more funding for the border, and we'll ramp down this impeachment nonsense. And he would have gotten enough Democrats to support him. They could have cut a deal. He could have gotten it done, saved his job, saved his legacy. He would have been seen as this like monumental, the speaker that finally put the end to the madness of MAGA and all this stuff. But not anymore. He's done.
But instead, he basically has shown the country that he hates Democrats more than he loves America. And that is going to be the takeaway message. And they have blown up everything they have spent years fighting for here. And if it wasn't going to cause so many like big problems, nationally speaking and internationally speaking, I'd be more excited about it. But I'm frankly just, I've never seen somebody so bad at their job. Like, and I lived through the Bush years. You know what I'm saying?
He was monumentally bad at being speaker. It's not as if he deserved to keep that job by any stretch. That's not what I'm saying. He was horrible at that job. He was weak. He was ineffective. He was a liar. He was making double deals. He was promising things he couldn't deliver. The first couple of things he did after being, famous for denouncing Trump on January 6th, there again, we thought he was going to step up and be a leader. The very first fucking thing he does is like go to Mar-a-Lago to visit Trump. And then he like promises Tucker Carlson that he'll have the exclusive on all the January 6th footage and all that shit. So just total dereliction of duty.
You know what I can't wait to see is remember like the big when the speaker battle was going on, the 15 votes and like his big boxes of stuff in the hallway of Congress, like that big rolling cart of his things. I just want to see that back in the hallway because he's not the speaker and he needs to vacate the speaker's office.
You need to move out, pal. You need to get the hell out of that office.
Like, that's why they're recessed. He's packing. That's where he is.
I'm sure he's gonna throw his hat in to try and get that job back. He might get it back, dude. Like he's, all these Republicans went to bat for him today. They might be willing to vote for him back in again.
That's almost would be the funniest part to me is if they do that just to put him back in, because it just speaks to the pettiness then of the party, right? Like, are you seriously going to throw the government into chaos every time you guys have a disagreement? You threw the government into chaos for 3 days of arguing just to put Kevin McCarthy back in his job. That's not good leadership either, like
meanwhile the clock is ticking on Ukraine there because they're not getting our money for a little bit, and so they can't.
The clock is ticking on the government. Like, it's going to shut down in 43 days. Like, that's the other thing. So like what happens if this drags on so long that the government runs out of money and there's still not a speaker? Because again, they don't have a backup plan. They don't have another candidate. Their best case scenario, like their most likely replacement for McCarthy, is Steve Scalise, who has blood cancer or something and is undergoing treatment. So like, not the best choice. You know what I mean?
Well, they're all pretty bad. But yeah, so absolutely crazy. Dems making it very clear that they are not just going to support him for nothing, just to be nice. And I guess he was like going about it completely the wrong way after shitting all over Democrats publicly. His little conciliatory like reach out to Democrats to try and get Democrats support was to basically pitch them on the idea of like institutional honor and like the preservation of the dignity of the House and shit like that. They're like, motherfucker,
like,
get out of our face with that shit. Like, you know, like that's how he tried to sell Democrats on supporting him. That's what he was offering was like the feel goods about doing the right thing, and the Democrats were like, no, you can give us like you can cut a fucking deal with us, and we'll see what happens. But
well, you know, the thing is that probably would have worked had he not gone on television and trashed them, right?
Yeah.
Because Democrats are Democrats at the end of the day, right? All he had to do was keep his mouth shut. All he had to do was not trash Democrats for one weekend. All he had to do was like say something mildly nice or even just moderately conciliatory. But instead he tries to like blame all of the chaos on them. So now it's like shoot yourself in the foot, man. It's remarkable.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. And then we got word today that some of the behind the scenes they were reaching out to Dems for support, and it was like described as begging. Mm-hmm. So that was brilliant. That's how you negotiate, kids. First you shit all over the person, and then you come back and beg for forgiveness. That's always effective. It's always an effective way to negotiate.
I'm just sitting here like the world watches this. Like, remember when America was admired in the world? What was
not
that
really?
like?
It's been a while.
It's been a good 20 years, I think. Well, no, it's been probably like we almost redeemed ourselves internationally with Obama, but then really just threw it away again in 2016. Just ugh.
Yeah, so we'll see. We're still right in the middle of this. I haven't gotten any word that they're going back in to start voting again.
I know I have like the news alert waiting to come up, but yeah, so far nothing.
Yeah, so Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, a few other traditional MAGA people, Gosar, I think, voted to protect McCarthy. So they're all being called sellouts and traitors today by the MAGA, who, you know, their list of supporters is getting more. But the funny thing about this is that, again, there's no clear-cut MAGA sort of principle on this. McCarthy's a Trump guy too. Mm-hmm. I mean, Trump was this weekend saying that like he likes Gates and McCarthy just said nice things about him and stuff. So there's no like clear Trump directive on this.
Because there's no leadership. That's like the larger takeaway from this is there is no leadership in the Republican Party, and there is no prospective leadership, because we're going to the debates soon, and like there's not much hope for the future, you know, like
they don't have nearly the bench that the Democrats do coming up.
Nope.
Speaking of Trump, New York fraud case kicking into gear. That's kicking off this weekend. New York AG Letitia James, that case, Judge Engoran in New York. This is all about fraud. This is a civil case, civil fraud case. This is all about Donald Trump's valuation of his properties and overstating the value of his properties and manipulating prices, all that. So he's being sued by the state of New York. Summary judgment kicked his ass out of New York. Essentially, Judge Engoran saying that it's looking like the Trump organization is on the road to being completely disbanded, which is hilarious because that would be the end of Trump Tower, which is where I think both Eric and Don Jr. like still live in Trump Tower.
I think Ivanka does as well.
They're homeless if this goes through. But finding such intense levels of fraud in the Trump organization in New York that they have basically gone. Judge Engoran went basically nuclear with summary judgment, blowing apart the Trump organization. It's been a doozy. Trump's talking about so the big thing was the big highlight of this was the valuation of Mar-a-Lago, which they spun to say that Judge Engoran was saying that the Mar-a-Lago property is worth $18 million, which is very low for Palm Beach. I'm sure Kathy can attest to that. But that wasn't what Engoran was saying. Engoran was saying that the value of Mar-a-Lago had been assessed between $18 and $25 million because that was Trump's valuation of the property. Trump once said that the Mar-a-Lago was once valued at $26 million. Trump said that was too high, that it was not worth $26 million. Now he's out there saying that it's worth $1.5 billion. It's probably somewhere in between 18 million and 1.5 billion, I would say, is what it's actually worth. But
I don't know. You could go to the Palm Beach County tax assessor's office and find out what it was actually appraised for property taxes. That's a good the good, easy solution.
But this is what's hilarious about this is literally why he's being sued by the state of New York, because what he would do is undervalue his properties at property tax time. So he was paying less in property taxes by saying Mar-a-Lago is worth, $22 million or whatever. And then when it came time for a loan or to make any kind of transaction on the property, he would say it's worth 1.5 billion. So he's literally like doing exactly what he's being sued for. So if it's like Mar-a-Lago is worth 1.5 billion, then you should probably be paying property tax on a 1.5 billion dollar property in South Florida.
The thing is, he's just so used to breaking the law that he doesn't even realize that he's doing it now. So he's like continuing to break the laws. He's literally in trouble for breaking because he just that's what he does. He's such a habitual criminal. He doesn't even realize he's a criminal.
Yeah. So what do you think about that, Kathy? That South Florida real estate? I know that's some pricey area down there.
I mean, it's a pricey area and all, but it's not 1.5 billion pricey.
That's like what you buy for. That's like what you pay for an island, basically, like your own private island.
No, you don't even pay. Like you can get more. Like you could probably buy the barrier islands for that. Like 200 mil will get you an island off of.
That's true.
Freaking coast, So there's just no universe, and like Mar-a-Lago hasn't been, from what I understand, anyway. Like it hasn't been remodeled in 30 years. So you walk into Mar-a-Lago, and it's like you walk into 1993.
Right.
Which is gross. If you remember 1993, it was gaudy is the best way to describe the 90s, and then add Donald Trump to that, so it's like gaudy on gaudy. Oh, just awful.
Well, Donald Trump wishes it was 1993, so it's probably good news for him.
Yeah, but I just think the funniest thing to me is like the pictures of him in the courtroom, just like the scowl on his face.
It's interesting that he showed up to this. I don't think he was required to show up.
Yeah, I don't think he had to. I don't know why he is.
But I think this one stings him more than the criminal stuff. Because like this is, even if he never sees a day inside jail, this is the one that could really sting him. I mean, this is the end of the Trump organization. Like I said, it's the end of Trump Tower. The family still lives there, at least in terms of like them owning that building.
And this is the seventh and final bankruptcy. Like this is the one he won't come back from.
Right. So his life's work, just something
his
about
father's life's work is what it is. Like, remember, he inherited that, and after inheriting all of his dad's fortune, he has like basically slow bled his father's fortune down to nothing. And the fact that it will end with nothing, like Don Jr. and Eric Trump ending up with nothing, will be my favorite part of this. Like Ivanka's fine. She married another corrupt family with billions of dollars from the Saudis, so she's cool. But like Eric and Don do not have a backup plan, so they're gonna be straight fuck.
They're not smart enough to have a backup plan, but it's also like they're watching their inheritance go up in smoke there. So see if they turn on Daddy, make a little deal there, save their inheritance, do something.
I think that the boat has sailed. Like
yeah, maybe.
They've already the verdict is in. He's already guilty. They're just assessing the damages at this point. And like if he keeps threatening the judge, I can't imagine it's going to go in his favor. You know what I mean?
Well, let's talk about that a little bit because first of all, he doesn't get access to this. Won't be a jury trial because his fucking less than talented legal team forgot to request a jury trial by the deadline. So the judge will be making the ruling. He's conveniently trying to spin that into saying that he was denied a jury trial, playing into this whole idea that he's being persecuted by the judge and the legal system and all that. It was literally just that fucking Alina Habba is an idiot, and or is it, or was it on purpose that she didn't check the box for a jury trial so that he could say he's being persecuted? I wouldn't put it past him, but most ultimately, I think Alina Habba is just a giant idiot.
Yeah, I think they just don't like. She's all of the good lawyers abandoned him, so he's just got crap lawyers. I mean, she's like, I saw a picture and on Twitter, it's not Twitter anymore, but you know what I mean. Like she's sitting there with like a gaming laptop. So I was making the joke. I'm like, is she just playing The Sims? Like, while pretending to defend Donnie from his fraud case? Because that would be really funny. Like, what if she's woohooing, in bushes and training horses whilst Donald Trump's empire is dismantled?
It always comes back to woohooing with you. I don't know what's going on.
That's why people play The Sims, Troy. Like, that's it. That's so you can, what? I'll shut up now.
Yeah. It's porn for people who don't want to watch porn. I get it.
But it's wholesome porn. It's like it's just hearts and bubbles.
Didn't you like once try to create a vampire by forcing a lot of inbreeding?
No. That wasn't me. I have alien empires, not vampire. The vampires are hard to play with, right? Because like they just die too quick. Because every time the sun comes out, they fry themselves to death. I'm gonna stop talking about this.
You can't make breakfast for vampires after woohooing. That doesn't work.
Actually, if you hang garlic on the door, the vampires don't come over.
Okay.
I'm gonna stop talking about this.
It's total wonder about Kathy's woohooing life here.
Like, look, it's how I dissociate from the world. Like when everything's on fire, I'm just like, you know what? I'm gonna go to a magical world where you woohoo in a bush.
To be clear, that's have sex in a bush in the Sims line.
Woohoo.
So they forgot to request a fucking jury trial, so he's not getting a jury. And then today, the breaking news today, this was crazy. It was coming out this morning. He was reposting, retweeting, whatever, retruthing some conspiracy theory site. Chuck Schumer said long story short, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer had they dug up a picture of him with this woman who I guess is Engoran's clerk. This conspiracy theory was trying to say that Chuck Schumer was having an affair with this woman, that this was Chuck Schumer's girlfriend, who's the clerk.
Nobody's fucking Chuck Schumer on.
Trying to like tie it into this like larger, again, everything's got to be a fucking conspiracy because everyone's lying but Donald Trump. But this was just literally like I don't know, they knew each other somehow or something. They probably like had friends in the legal community. It's fucking New York. He's the senator from New York.
I understand. It was like a campaign event. Like, if you ever go to a campaign event, like at the end of the thing, you can do the meet and greet and get your picture taken with the senator or whatever. Yeah. Like everybody does it. Like they don't know who they're getting their pictures taken with.
Literally just like get your picture taken with the senator, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But, so Trump retweets this, retruths this conspiracy theory. So that kicks off this whole big thing this morning about who is this woman, blah, 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 blah. Turns out Schumer is like remarkably loyal to his wife, by the way. I'm not going to get into it, but they've been married for 40 years and they have like this incredibly adorable relationship. So he's definitely not cheating on his wife. But it turns out this woman is just Engoran's clerk, like had nothing to do with this. She had to make her Instagram private because Trump like posted her Instagram profile. She started to get like harassed. This was all in the span of like a couple hours.
Yikes.
As he's retweeting all this bullshit, he's sitting in the courtroom with this woman who's sitting next to the judge. It's the judge's clerk. And Trump is like openly attacking her on Truth Social. All of a sudden, all hell breaks loose. So we just started to get reports that all hell was breaking loose. Engoran throws everybody out of the court except for Trump and his legal team. And no one really knows what was discussed. Well, we now do. But what ended up happening was Trump ended up deleting these sort of threatening posts about this woman from his Truth Social. So what ended up happening was Engoran basically instituted a emergency gag order against Trump, not to threaten any of his legal staff, or potentially face 30 days in jail. So Engoran getting Trump to actually do something he never does, which is delete a post. But yeah,
well, it was probably you delete the post or you go to prison. It was probably like nobody was in the room. That's probably what happened.
Right.
But what I'm curious about is because, there's been talk about the January 6th trial about whether they'll institute a gag order too. And it was sort of like Alvin Bragg, like the first to do it, I think kind of opens the door to let it be okay to do it. So now that it's been done, I think it's going to be done. And that's going to be really effective in shutting him up, I think, because he won't have any money to bail himself out soon.
In the chat, Kathy's a woohoo girl. Yeah, she is.
No, leave me alone. I like my son.
But yeah, just crazy stuff. But yeah, I guarantee you that's what it was. Engoran was pissed, threw all the cameras out, threw the stenographer out. By the way, the stenographer union is the strongest union in the history of the world. The fact that those people are still employed as stenographers when, we have recording technology, people. We don't need stenographers to record.
You know what? I feel like I should have been a stenographer. I could have made up my own language.
Just throws out the press, throws out the stenographer, probably tells Trump if he does it again, he's going to jail. So gag order issued against Trump for attacking this poor fucking clerk. She had to make her Instagram account private. So pretty crazy. Speaking of Trump's, we'll get to polling in a second, but speaking of some more bizarre Trump ass shit, he had a really fucked up weekend. He was speaking in Orange County, in Anaheim, in California, to a speech to a group of, crazy Southern California MAGA. California MAGA are like the worst MAGA.
I don't know. Florida MAGA.
Florida MAGA is probably worse than anybody, but yeah. he just says a series of like just shitty statements. He said that Nancy Pelosi had ruined San Francisco. How unclear, but then he asked how her husband was doing. He's like, how's her husband doing, by the way, this is the guy that, like, the attack on Paul Pelosi, he got his fucking skull crushed in by a guy with a hammer. The guy was a MAGA guy. He was a QAnon inspired MAGA election denying extremist. Trump inspired this guy to do what he did, and now Trump's like mocking the victim. My question is, like, could Trump be held, culpable for that at any point? But also, he's like potentially inspiring more attacks on the Pelosi family by doing this shit. It's not like Trump had no fault in that attack on Paul Pelosi. This was a Trump guy that did this, that carried this out. And now he's like mocking him publicly, like, oh, how's Paul Pelosi doing these days? It's like just reeks of mafia tactics. He said he's in Orange County, so he says Beverly Hills people stink because they don't take enough showers because they're limiting their water usage. Then he went to Beverly Hills right after that, by the way. It's for a fundraiser. He said you need a voter ID to buy a loaf of bread. This is throughout this entire weekend. This is just a crazy weekend. He said you need a voter ID to buy a loaf of bread. He said Biden was going to start World War II. He said that windmills were killing whales, causing whales to go insane. He accused Jeb Bush of invading Afghanistan. Said he defeated Obama in the 2016 election. Said he won California, but California was rigged. Said he would change the law to allow shoplifters to be shot. And once again claimed that Democrats want to kill their babies after birth, post-birth abortion. So, yikes. Pretty crazy stuff.
He's hanging on by a thread there, it seems.
He doesn't look good. I know that's the dumbest, most obvious thing ever, but like, he doesn't look good. He's looking a little shaky there.
But it's the violent rhetoric that I think it was The Atlantic or The Nation or some article like that. I can't even remember right now that I read earlier, but like, his rhetoric needs to be taken more seriously, right? Because he's really good at doing it in a way that, like, he's very vague in what he says, but is also very clear in what he wants to happen. Mm-hmm. And I feel like, having lived in the 90s and remembering the white supremacist domestic terrorism and all of that stuff, like, he's speaking directly to them, like indirectly, but directly. You know what I mean? Like, he's being vague in his language. He's being like something should happen to them or we should do this. But like, it's kind of scary, like, because he has a lot of influence. Like, there was the MAGA shooter in Jacksonville that killed 3 Black people. There was the El Paso shooting, if you remember, years ago. That was a MAGA QAnon guy. Like, the Paul Pelosi, like, it's once is, random, twice is a coincidence, 3 is a pattern, and we're over 5, I think, at this point. Like,
I've been saying this. I don't understand why he's not held more accountable for stuff like this. These people are carrying out this action in his name.
That's what I'm saying.
And not only is he not, I mean, not even to mention fucking January 6th and that whole thing. Yeah. But not only is he not, denouncing them or, telling his people not to do that. Now he's out there like openly mocking the victim. Mm-hmm. I mean, Paul Pelosi's like an 80-year-old man who was almost killed in his home.
I know.
You know what I mean? And fucking inspired, the guy that attacked it was as a MAGA guy, inspired by Trump, and Trump's out there laughing. I can't. At some point, there's got to be some culpability for that.
And that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, it took Alvin Bragg filing charges for everybody else to feel comfortable filing charges. So I feel like this guy issuing a gag order might make people feel comfortable issuing the gag order. And that, I think, is what's going to be necessary, because the longer he's allowed to speak about things or, indirectly to people about things, the more likely he's going to inspire more of this rhetoric. So I really hope that this gag order is the first in many gag orders that will ultimately save people's lives, because I really don't like the idea that he's encouraging people to commit acts of violence quite openly, quite frequently, and with no, consequence. So
Irene is the expert on gag orders and all this stuff. I'm just kidding. But Irene, I'm just curious, like, what your thoughts are at all.
It's all right. All the jokes you guys made last week, like the first episode of this podcast my mom decides to listen to, is the one where you two are making fun of my sex life.
We do that every time. You got to be more specific.
That's what I told her. I was like, they just make fun of me because they know I get embarrassed. And she's like, well, I shouldn't be hearing these things. I'm like, God damn it.
I have coworkers who found the fact that I have a podcast and have been listening to it.
Already?
Like new coworkers? Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
You're just so popular.
Yeah.
I lost my.
I want Trump to not be allowed to speak. I want a conservatorship over Trump.
Yeah.
You've been saying that for a while. Yeah.
Time to
I've been
Britney
saying that
his
for a
ass.
while. I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet, especially now that like Trump Towers and like Trump as a like corporation is really at risk. Like, how much longer is it going to take before they say, psychologically crazy, stamp it, we're in charge of Dad's estate now? Like, I just feel it coming and it hasn't happened yet, and I'm just like, where's the line?
Well, it's
Where's
because
the
they're
line?
so afraid of him. Like those two boys, he has all of the makings of an abusive father, like whether it was physically abusive or verbally abusive. Like those two boys have no backbone at all in general, but especially when it comes to their dad. So to do something like that would require testicles that those two boys do not have. Okay.
Yeah.
Like they just do not. And that's why it hasn't happened. It's most likely to happen if Ivanka does it, but I don't think she cares enough.
I think one of the other things that makes a big difference on the gag order is that he's so used to talking about public figures that are more fair game in the media.
Right.
That the minute he gets anyone who's not a public figure, that's when he gets in trouble. So as we get more details on all the investigations and cases that he's involved in right now, it's like he can only say so much. He's so used to his hands being free, where they're very tied when it comes to public, like private civilians.
Yeah. Yeah, he's gonna learn that. I mean, you know, he can shit talk Nancy Pelosi all he wants, but like some random, just poor woman in a courtroom whose literally only crime was getting a picture taken with Chuck Schumer, and now she's got the full force of MAGA just like coming after her.
I mean, an argument could be made that like Paul Pelosi is taking it too far because like Nancy made herself a public figure, but he did not, right? Like, and I don't know, man. I just think something needs to be like I'm just amazed at how much he gets away with. Like no other human being would be able to get away with what this man has gotten away with repeatedly. It's remains baffling.
Let's talk polling real quick. So some polling numbers. I want Kathy to give the Republican candidate polling as we get into a little conversation about the shit show of a debate that happened the other night. But the biggest like what the fuck poll, we've been talking about how polling is bullshit. They don't account. They don't poll young people, which is the Democrats' strongest voting bloc. They don't poll Gen Z, young millennials. So polls are always skewing to the right because they're leaving out a huge chunk of Democratic voters. The people that get polled are the people that are ready, willing, and able to be polled, and those tend to be older, more conservative people. But this Washington Post poll that came out a couple weeks ago is absolutely just asinine. I can't believe the people are actually taking this. This is an indictment of the polling industry. In general, most polls have Biden and Trump pretty level. This one has Trump beating Biden by 13 points. Just out of nowhere. Like, where did that even come from? Trump doesn't have, there's no way. Where is Trump getting that 13 points? He's not that popular. His personal approval rating is still around 35-36%. They have Trump up 15 points among young voters, 18 to 35-year-olds. They have Trump beating Biden by 15 points. They have him up 20 points by pro-choice voters. Like, just absolute, just stupid, shoddy methods, shoddy polling. All it takes is one of these goddamn polls to come out, and they just start spitting this all over legacy media and talk about how in trouble Biden is. It's been bullshit talking about how close this election is anyway. But to have Trump up 15 points among Gen Z and young millennials is so fucking stupid. It's almost hilarious. But yeah, just a total indictment of the polling industry there. This Washington Post poll. But yeah, I was just blown away by that. That was absolutely crazy, that poll.
Yeah.
But give us some numbers on the Republican candidates there, Kathy. You have those numbers, right?
I do. I actually just pulled up like the actual like language of that poll, so we can talk about it in a little bit if you want to. But right now, nationally, GOP primary, they have Trump at 55%, with DeSantis at 13.7, Haley at 7.8. Ramaswamy at 6.4, Mike Pence at 3.4, Chris Christie 2.8, and Tim Scott, remember him, 2.2. Right, so they're all there.
What's a DeSantis again?
DeSantis is 13.7 nationally, but and this is the point I like to make when I teach polling to the kids, is that any poll at any moment in time is a snapshot, and that's all it tells you. And there's margins of errors, and like the methodology and the framing and phrasing of the questions is also very important. And that's why I pulled up that outlier poll, because I wanted to look at it. because that is actually probably what might skew the results in a big way. But what polling is good for is showing you trends in what's happening. And like you said, with Trump's data, like in all polls since 2015, when he entered the race, he has stuck around between 40 and 48. He's never really, I think he got to 49 once for a hot second, but he's never broken 50% in a national poll ever at all. And it's unlikely that after 91 felony indictments that's going to somehow change, right? So whatever. And you actually kind of see he's holding a lead in the Republican primary across the board, and a pretty substantial one. But again, I think that has to do with just a lack of ideas on the Republican side. And when you look at the other candidates trying to like vie for the nomination, fucking Ron DeSantis, come on. He was supposed to be their golden boy, like their new like Trump without the baggage, but he's Trump with cowboy boots, and that's embarrassing. But his polling, and that's what's really interesting. And Irene, I want your take on this, because what you see is Trump kind of maintaining like at or around, his regular numbers. DeSantis is steadily falling, and Nikki Haley is creeping up slowly. And that, if I were the Biden campaign, I'd be concerned about, because she's the only one that stands any chance in a general election. But I also think it's interesting that she's going up more slowly than DeSantis is coming down, which tells me that Republicans are better at disliking people than liking people, which I find interesting. But also, Nikki Haley has jumped ahead in New Hampshire. And a lot of people love paying attention to the Iowa caucuses, obviously. But like the winner of the Iowa caucuses very rarely wins the nomination, which is why it's always amazed me that people care so much about Iowa. But the winner of the New Hampshire primary often wins the nomination. And for her to be creeping up, like she's not approaching Trump in any way, but the Republican primary to me is looking like it's going to be second place ends up with the nomination in light of Trump's eventual arrest. Like if something happens or he's disqualified from the ballot, and that's what they're doing. Like they want to talk about how they're running for vice president. They're not running for vice president. None of them want to be Donald Trump's vice president because he tried to murder the last one, right? So that's not exactly an appealing job. But what they're all hoping is that something happens that pushes Trump out and they can walk in. But if they're still only like the highest number that you see here is what, somewhere between 13 and 16%, you don't win a general election if you're only polling 13, 16% with your own party. So, yeah. It's not looking good for Republicans in general.
It's really not. It's pretty baffling to me that people think that like Trump is actually going to be doing well with more gag orders, and we get into these trials, and he's going to be, he's not going to be able to hold the campaign rallies because he's going to be in court, and just, It's not a regular election, you guys. Like the media keeps wanting to try and make this just a regular election. It's really not. It's really not at all. So do you have the language of that WAPO poll? I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, I'm reading it right now. So conducted by telephone between September 15th and 20th.
The cell phones at all, or is it all landlines?
Yeah, 75% cell phones, 25% landlines. Results have a margin of sampling error of plus or minus 3.5%. Okay. And for those of you who know, that is a rather large sample.
What was the sample size?
1,006. So just at like a credible sample, right?
Yeah. Interesting. That's just the most bizarre. And again, they take these like singular polls and they just run with it. And now they're talking about it. Just drives the narrative of media for weeks about like, Biden's declining popularity. And it's like, you guys, this is based on bullshit. Like this isn't based in reality. You're not polling.
Well, but I also have the information. Oh, so because like I scroll all the way to the bottom because that's where they put like the major numbers. So of the 1,006 people polled, 890 are registered voters. So they polled a good chunk of just not registered voters. Okay. 396 leaned Democrat and 474 leaned Republican.
Okay. That's interesting. And those are the registered voters.
Yeah. And like that's
why would you poll non-registered voters? That's
because it's random samples. But the point is that their sample skewed heavily Republican anyway. Right. And then when you go through and you sort of start reading the questions,
undecided is just a cop out anyway. If you're not a Republican or a Democrat and you're taking that poll, you're a Republican.
Yeah, like so. For here's a question
Yeah,
that there's the caveat that like there are certain questions that if they lean Republican, like that's how polls work. Like you lean Democrat, Republican, and that sends you in a direction on the poll, so your questions are different. So like this question, it's ask if leaned Republican, who would you like the Republican Party to nominate as a candidate? Blah blah blah. And that's where Donald Trump gets his 54, Ron DeSantis gets 15, Nikki Haley gets 7, right? But if they lean Democrat, and like that, I think a little bit, what I'm getting from looking at it is the lean Democrat questions were really trying to gauge as to whether or not Democrats felt comfortable with Biden running. And that means that they're planting that thought in the head of Democrats, and that's going to skew the results of the questions going down, right? It's push polling, if you know what that is.
I don't want to. We can come back to this in a second, but huge breaking news just coming through. Kevin McCarthy is not running for speaker again. He is about to make an announcement in a closed door GOP meeting. Inside sources reporting Kevin McCarthy will not be putting his hat in the speakership again. He's done.
Is it wrong that I'm like super excited but also terrified about that? Who the fuck replace? Like, I'm not saying I love like who are they going to put Jim Jordan in the speaker? Oh my god!
So that's all I have at the moment. Just inside sources inside the Republican conference. He's about to announce in a closed door meeting that he will not be seeking speaker again. I guess he's humiliated. I mean, I would be. I mean, you kind of eliminate the humiliation factor just because you kind of assume that he has no shame or whatever. But he's probably humiliated. He's probably just done. Wonder if he resigns. Yeah. So you heard that here first on Just Buy Less Coffee. This will be a good time to announce that we are moving to a different YouTube channel. We will no longer be showing live broadcasts on the Upwire. We are going to actually just build our own damn YouTube page, you guys, just to keep a lookout for that. I will be working on transferring all of our old content to the new Just Buy Less Coffee YouTube page. We will continue to do live broadcasts Tuesdays, 6 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be trying to work our Thursday show back into the lineup as soon as possible. But all video content will be on a new Just Buy Less Coffee YouTube page. So keep an eye out for that. It might be a little sparse to begin with because I have to move over like 2 years worth of content, but but we will move as much content over as possible. So yeah, interesting. Let's see, more stuff's coming in. So McCarthy in closed GOP meeting, quote, "We've got a lot of big challenges. I don't want this to be an angry meeting. I firmly trust in God." This is him in the meeting, by the way. "I firmly trust in God. You need 218 votes to be speaker and for the rules and amendments." This doesn't make any sense. You held my mouth until you said something that wasn't true. I don't know what that means. I'm getting weird quotes. Anyway, just McCarthy addressing his conference and addressing the fact that he will not be running for speaker again. So interesting stuff. But yeah, with that Republican. So at this point, all I wanted to say on that polling was, at this point, if you are still identifying as a Republican and when you're being polled, you are a Trump supporter. Like the people at this point, if they will continue to identify as a Republican, they are most likely going to be MAGA. So that, again, that's going to skew it a little bit. I think if you were a leading Republican or just identify as like a conservative, you probably are not going to be identifying as like a solid Republican in these polls if you're not a hardcore Trump supporter. So, but you never know. So.
Yeah, I'm reading through this really, really quickly, and I can see why this poll is an outlier in the way they asked the questions, in the way the questions diverted, and a lot of the phrasing. It's very push poll-y toward measuring Republican sentiment. If
right,
that makes
exactly.
Any sense. And I think probably that was done for the purposes of the GOP primaries because there's actually that happening. So they were more concerned with asking those questions, which means that more of those people stayed on the phone, if that makes any sense.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And just like scrolling through it really quick, like that's what I'm seeing. Yeah. So it's, I mean, and even the Washington Post has like admitted that this is an outlier poll, but I'm kind of like in a weird way glad that they released it as the outlier because it opens the conversation for how polling can be used and how to recognize a poll that stands out from the norm, right? And,
Right.
so yeah, I can't believe he's not running for speaker. I was like all in like nerdy polling mode, and you throw that at me.
Sorry, it's just crazy breaking it. He says he's going to go home, spend time with his family. I guess he's going to doing what a rational, sane human being would do. Probably lay low for a little bit, lick his wounds, maybe come back just as a regular. He's got power now. I mean, he's been speaker. He can negotiate with certain aspects of that conference. But I wonder if he comes back with a vengeance to try and take out Matt Gaetz and the people that turned on him.
I just think, I don't know, man, that's going to be wild. It hasn't broken anywhere else. And like, I'd love that you have this inside track to information. You're so cool now.
To be clear, this is not confidential or anything. This is breaking on X. I just have the fast track to the really cool breaking shit on X. So I'm not giving away anything classified here, but yeah, this is breaking in some inner circles. So crazy.
You know what my favorite thing of today is? I'm just going to reiterate. So it just like opens Yahoo News, and like they kind of order stories in popularity. So for the politics tab, Hunter Biden pleads not guilty on federal gun charges is the 5th post. They wanted that headline so bad, and it's 5th. There's like 3 stories about Republican dysfunction ahead of it. My favorite part of today. We
only have like 5 minutes left. We may just be going through this. More McCarthy stuff. I'm not going to sell my soul to Democrats. I'll still work to get you elected. Maybe not all of you because I'm a free agent. But when we come out of the next vote, let's elect that person on the first round. If I have to be a sacrifice, so be it. We're the only conservative face for America. I appreciate all of you. I did it for the good of the conference. I guess this seems like it's a lot of order. Apologies. I did it for the good of the conference. The Dems came to me to make a deal. The Dems came to me to make a deal. I wasn't going to make a deal when 8 people work with the Democrats. It's not for the best of the conference. I got to be the 55th speaker, blah, 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 blah. So once again, blaming Democrats for his own dysfunction within it. This is what kills me. They just spent all day like blaming Democrats for their dysfunction. I'm like, own it. It's your problem. It's not like the Democrats aren't forcing you to be fucking insane. But yeah, once again,
they
I'm not going to sell out to the Democrats.
Oh my God, this is so wild to me.
Yeah.
So we got really far through the outline. We got through 2 things, but to be fair, those 2 things were gigantic. So it's fun.
So anyway, it's pretty crazy. It's again, he's essentially admitting, and he's making it sound like it was a bad thing. But yeah, of course the Dems are going to reach out for it. Like, this is how it works, Kev. Like, this is how politics works. Like, the Democrats weren't just going to support you because you're a great guy and you have a nice smile. Like
he's neither of those. He does not.
Like, the Democrats you've been a shit. You've been a total MAGA creep. You've been a sellout. You can't even keep your own fucking thing in line. You're running a sham impeachment. You're backing January 6th insurrectionists and traitors. Like, Democrats are not just going to fucking like roll out the red carpet for you, bro. Like, you're going to have to kind of wheel and deal. That's the nature of the job. And now he's out here being like, I didn't want to sell out to Democrats. He's trying to like suggest that like he held on to his principles. Again, blaming Democrats for the dysfunction in the Republican caucus. So
this is just the funniest thing in the world to me. Irene, I know what you're doing. You're gonna be glued to your television now because I don't know what happens. It's like the kids are gonna ask me tomorrow, and I don't know. Like, I usually know the answer. I don't know the answer.
This is basically all I'm going to be listening to for the next couple of days because I'm going to be out of town most of the weekend. So I'm just be driving for 8 hours on end. It's just me listening to whatever's live playing on YouTube, just like the live streams of all the information coming through over and over again all day.
Just random. Jeffries.
No, literally. It's going to be another round of me disassociating to Hakeem Jeffries over and over again.
So for people that are like thinking that I don't know what I'm talking about because I'm using Twitter as a source, these are people that are in the room, they're tweeting. It's not like I'm not using X as like my source. Troy has
cool friends,
My source is the people in the room. So just so you're aware. A lot of people be like, Twitter's your source? What the fuck?
No. Crazy, man.
So we are just about out of time. Any final thoughts, you guys? Yeah, we were going to cover
broke on the hill. Kevin
it's on the hill now. Yeah.
On the hill.
No selling your soul. No selling your soul to Democrats. Kevin McCarthy, lose your job.
Yikes! Stripes.
So once again, check us out on YouTube. We will be by next week. We'll send out some stuff on TikTok and Instagram. We will have. I'm sure it'll just be Just Buy Less Coffee on YouTube. I'll move some content over. We will begin doing lives on our own YouTube channel, completely independent. Just Buy Less Coffee on YouTube. If you want to continue to watch the video content, watch the lives, 6 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesdays. And check us out on the YouTubes. If you want to continue listening to audio only, we are, as always, anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Google, Spotify, Podchaser, anywhere you get your podcasts, you can listen to the audio versions. Download the episodes. Downloads are how we're ranked with other news and political podcasts. Make sure you're downloading the episode. Doesn't cost you anything. Make sure you're leaving reviews, positive, constructive reviews, saying nice things about Kathy and Irene, encouraging Kathy to put down the woohooing for a little bit, maybe, or run with it. Either way.
Once a month when I'm about to have a breakdown, anybody would think it's all I do.
No, I think it's fine.
To be fair, days do disappear when you play. Like, I'll sit down to play and it's like 9 hours later and I'm like, holy fuck, I need to do laundry. But like, that's why I only play like once a month.
No, it's fine. I'm sure it's fun. I'm sure it's a lot of fun. Actually.
A lot of fun.
So yeah, so that's it. Is anything I missed? So
no,
yeah,
I'm just doom scrolling Twitter now because like, oh my god, look at the current.
That's pretty funny.
I'm delighted. And
that's
even
pretty funny.
My dog is sad about this. I know.
Your dog's a huge Kevin McCarthy fan.
No, he's not. He's just a huge fan of not chaos.
Oh, Patreon. Yeah, check us out. I'm so distracted by this dude. So yeah, check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/justbuylesscoffee. You can subscribe $5 a month, get access to behind the scenes content, merch, special goodies. Oh, there's Rocky, baby. There's the doggy. We had the cat and the dog make an appearance. So yeah, subscribe $5 a month to get access to some special content. Thanks everybody for joining us today in the live chat, for joining us, and we will see everybody next time. You've been listening to Just Buy Less Coffee, answering the deeper questions of American politics, featuring Troy Matthews at Keep Troy Blue, Kathy Cannon at Cannon's Fodder, and Irene Polton at Pollution. Studio time, audio, and visual provided by Tahoe Production House. Follow us on TikTok and Instagram. All opinions are our own.